My wife claims she was helping my mother with errands. She's been sleeping with my father. There are certain betrayals so twisted and unnatural that they shatter not just your marriage, but your entire understanding of family, loyalty, and human decency. When you marry someone, they become part of your family. They're welcomed into your parents' home, invited to family gatherings, and trusted as someone who will respect and protect the relationships that matter most to you. What I'm about to share with you is the most disturbing story of betrayal I've ever experienced. One so shocking that it will make you question whether anyone in your life is capable of the unthinkable. Hit that subscribe button right now because this story involves a level of family destruction so complete that it defies comprehension. Family relationships are supposed to be sacred. Your parents raised you, sacrificed for you, and deserve your respect and protection as they age. Your spouse is supposed to honor and respect your family relationships, understanding that loving you means caring about the people who shaped you. When your wife offers to help your elderly parents with errands, doctor's appointments, and household tasks, it should be a beautiful demonstration of how marriage expands love and support within families. But what happens when that generous offer to help is actually a cover for the most disgusting betrayal imaginable? What happens when your wife's kindness toward your parents is really an opportunity to seduce your own father and destroy your family from within? My name is Steven, and until 6 weeks ago, I believe my wife Jennifer was one of the most caring, generous people I'd ever known. I thought her devotion to helping my aging parents with their daily needs showed incredible character and proved how lucky I was to marry someone who genuinely loved my family. I had no idea that when Jennifer volunteered to help my 68-year-old mother with errands and household tasks, she was actually using that access to seduce my 70-year-old father and conduct an affair so twisted and immoral that it has destroyed not just my marriage, my relationship with my father, and the very foundation of our family. I'm 35 years old, a high school history teacher from Sacramento, California, and I've been married to Jennifer for 4 years. We don't have children yet, but we've been planning to start a family once we felt more financially secure. Jennifer works as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center, and she's always been drawn to helping people who need care and support, a quality that initially attracted me to her and that I thought showed her beautiful and passionate nature. My parents, Robert and Susan, are both in their early 70s and have been married for 45 years. My father is a retired electrician who has some mobility issues due to knee problems and mild arthritis. My mother has early-stage dementia that affects her memory and sometimes makes daily tasks challenging. Despite their health issues, my parents have always been determined to remain in their own home and maintain as much independence as possible. About a year and a half ago, it became clear that my parents needed more support with grocery shopping, medical appointments, and household maintenance than I could provide while working full-time and living 45 minutes away from their house. Jennifer immediately offered to help with my parents' care needs, volunteering to visit them regularly to assist with errands, cleaning, and providing companionship for my mother during times when her dementia symptoms made her feel confused or anxious. "Your parents are such wonderful people," Jennifer said when she first suggested helping with their care. "I can see how much they mean to you, and I want to do everything I can to help them stay comfortable and independent. It would be my pleasure to spend time with them and help with whatever they need." I was incredibly grateful for Jennifer's offer and touched by her willingness to take on additional responsibilities to support my family during a challenging time. Jennifer began visiting my parents twice a week, helping with grocery shopping, light housekeeping, organizing medications, and providing social interaction that was particularly beneficial for my mother's mental health and cognitive function. Jennifer is such a blessing. My mother would tell me during our phone calls. She's so patient and kind, and she makes everything seem less overwhelming. I don't know what we'd do without her help. My father also seemed to appreciate Jennifer's assistance and would often comment on how thoughtful and capable she was in managing the various tasks that had become difficult for them. "Jennifer knows exactly what we need," my father would say. "She anticipates problems before they become serious, and she handles everything with such care and efficiency." I was proud of Jennifer's relationship with my parents and grateful that they felt supported and cared for during a period when their health challenges were making independence more difficult. Over the months that followed, Jennifer became increasingly involved in my parents' daily routine, sometimes spending entire days at their house and occasionally staying overnight when my mother was having particularly difficult days with her dementia symptoms. "Your mother had a really bad day yesterday," Jennifer would explain when she stayed overnight at my parents' house. "She was confused and agitated, and I thought it would be better if I stayed to help your father manage the situation rather than leaving him to handle it alone." Jennifer's dedication to my parents' well-being seemed extraordinary, and I often told friends and family members how lucky I felt to be married to someone who was so committed to caring for elderly family members. Jennifer also began taking on more complex responsibilities for my parents' care, including managing their medical appointments, coordinating with their doctors, and handling some of their financial paperwork when my mother's cognitive decline made these tasks too challenging for her. I've been helping your parents organize their medical records and make sure they're keeping up with all their appointments, Jennifer would tell me. Your mother sometimes forgets about important doctor visits, and your father has trouble keeping track of all the different medications and treatment schedules. Jennifer's willingness to manage detailed aspects of my parents' healthcare seemed like an incredible gift, and I frequently expressed my gratitude for her dedication and competence in handling such important responsibilities. The first thing that made me slightly uncomfortable was when I noticed that Jennifer seemed to be spending more time with my father individually, often sending my mother to rest or suggesting activities that would separate them during her visits. Your mother seems tired, so I suggested she take a nap while your father and I handle the grocery shopping, Jennifer might say when I called during one of her visits. Your father wanted to show me how to fix the leaky faucet, so your mother decided to visit with the neighbor while we work on the plumbing, she might explain on another occasion. Jennifer's explanations seemed reasonable, since caregiving often requires managing different needs and energy levels, but I began noticing that she was frequently alone with my father while my mother was occupied elsewhere. The second red flag came when I observed that my father seemed unusually energetic and happy on days when Jennifer was scheduled to visit, and somewhat subdued or disappointed when her visits were canceled or postponed. "Is Jennifer coming today?" my father would ask when I called to check on my parents, and his mood seemed to brighten noticeably when I confirmed her visit schedule. "Jennifer had to cancel her visit today because of work," I might explain, and my father would seem deflated in a way that seemed disproportionate, missing routine household assistance. My father's emotional investment in Jennifer's visits seemed excessive for someone who was simply receiving help with errands and household tasks. The third red flag came when I noticed that Jennifer had become unusually knowledgeable about my father's personal preferences, interests, and daily routine in ways that seemed beyond what was necessary for providing care assistance. "Your father mentioned that he's been craving his favorite dessert from that bakery across town," Jennifer might say, "so I picked some up for him during my errands. Your father was telling me about his old Navy stories, and I thought he might enjoy this book about World War II naval history," Jennifer would explain when giving my father thoughtful gifts. Jennifer's detailed attention to my father's personal likes and interests seemed unusually focused for someone whose primary responsibility was helping with practical tasks and medical care. The fourth and most concerning change was in Jennifer's attitude towards spending time with me versus spending time with my parents, particularly my father. Jennifer began prioritizing her visits to my parents over social activities with me. She seemed more excited about her time at their house than about our time together as a couple. "I promised your parents I'd help them organize their closets this weekend," Jennifer might say when I suggested we go out for dinner or spend time together. "Your father needs help setting up his new television system, and I want to make sure he understands how to use it," she would explain when declining invitations to social events or romantic activities. Jennifer's increasing preference for time with my parents, especially my father, over time with me seemed unusual for someone who was supposedly providing care out of family obligation rather than personal interest. The situation came to a devastating conclusion 5 weeks ago when I decided to surprise my parents with an unexpected visit and discovered Jennifer and my father in a situation that shattered my entire understanding of my family. I had finished my teaching duties early due to a school assembly and decided to stop by my parents' house to see how they were doing and to spend some time with my mother, whose dementia symptoms had been worsening recently. When I arrived at my parents' house, Jennifer's car was in the driveway as expected, since it was one of her scheduled visit days. I used my key to enter through the front door and called out to let everyone know I was there for a surprise visit. "Mom, Dad, Jennifer, I'm here," I called, but there was no response from the main areas of the house. I walked through the living room and kitchen, looking for my parents and Jennifer, and noticed that my mother was napping in her bedroom with the door closed, which was typical for her afternoon rest periods. I could hear voices coming from my father's home office, so I walked toward that room expecting to find Jennifer helping my father with paperwork or computer tasks. When I opened the door to my father's office, I found Jennifer and my father in a sexual position that will be burned into my memory forever. Jennifer was sitting on my father's lap in his desk chair, both of them partially clothed, obviously engaged in sexual activity. They were so absorbed in what they were doing that they didn't immediately notice that I had entered the room. I stood in the doorway of my father's office, watching my wife have sex with my 70-year-old father while my mother with dementia slept in the next room. When Jennifer finally noticed me standing there, she screamed and jumped off my father's lap, frantically trying to adjust her clothing. My father looked up and saw me with an expression of shock, panic, and guilt that confirmed what I had witnessed was was real and not some horrible nightmare. Even, Jennifer said, her voice filled with horror and fear. This isn't what it looks like. But there was no explanation possible for what I had seen. My wife and my father had been having sex in my parents' house while my mother slept nearby. How long? I asked, barely able to speak through my shock and disgust. Jennifer and my father looked at each other with expressions that made it clear this wasn't a one-time occurrence or moment of weakness. Even, we need to talk, my father said, trying to compose himself while avoiding eye contact with me. How long? I repeated, demanding an answer. About 8 months, Jennifer finally admitted. 8 months. My wife had been having sex with my father for 8 months while pretending to provide care for my aging parents, and while I thanked her for her generosity and dedication to our family, I turned around and walked out of my father's office, leaving Jennifer and my father to deal with the consequences of being caught in the most disgusting betrayal I could imagine. I sat in my car in my parents' driveway for over an hour, trying to process what I had just witnessed and what it meant for my marriage, my relationship with my father, and my ability to continue caring for my mother. Jennifer eventually came outside and tried to get me to come back into the house to discuss what had happened and explain their relationship. Even, please don't leave like this, Jennifer said through my car window. We need to talk about this situation and figure out how to handle it. But there was nothing to discuss or figure out. Jennifer had been having sex with my father while using her caregiving role as a cover for their affair. Get away from me, I told Jennifer through my closed car window. I never want to see you again, and I never want you around my parents again. I drove away from my parents' house without speaking to my father, unable to process the magnitude of what had happened or decide how to handle the destruction of my family relationships. That evening, Jennifer came home and tried to explain what had happened and minimize the significance of her affair with my father. Even, I know this looks terrible, Jennifer said, but what happened between your father and me wasn't planned. We developed feelings for each other gradually while spending so much time together. But Jennifer's explanation ignored the calculated nature of their affair and the fact that she had been systematically deceiving both my mother and me for 8 months. Jennifer, I said, you've been having sex with my father while pretending to provide care for my parents. You've been doing this in my parents' house while my mother with dementia was in the next room. There's no explanation that makes this acceptable. Jennifer initially tried to claim that her relationship with my father had developed from genuine emotional connection and that they hadn't intended to betray my trust or hurt my family. Your father was lonely and struggling with your mother's dementia, Jennifer said. I was providing emotional support, and our relationship evolved into something more intimate. We didn't plan for this to happen, but Jennifer's affair with my father hadn't evolved naturally. It had required deliberate deception, exploitation of my parents' vulnerability, and systematic betrayal of my trust and my mother's well-being. If you're feeling as disgusted and devastated as I was when I discovered my wife's affair with my father, you need to hit that subscribe button right now, because this story gets even more disturbing when I learned how they had been conducting their relationship. What I found out about how they used my mother's dementia to facilitate their affair and what they had been planning for the future will make you realize that some people are capable of evil so profound that it destroys not just marriages but entire families. Ring that notification bell, because you won't believe how this twisted affair affected my mother and what I had to do to protect her. Over the next several days, Jennifer and my father revealed additional details about their affair that made the situation even more sickening and unforgivable. Jennifer admitted that she and my father had been having sex regularly in my parents' house, often while my mother was present but distracted or sleeping. We would wait until your mother was napping or watching television. Jennifer confessed when I demanded details about how they had conducted their affair. Your father's office became our regular meeting place because your mother rarely went in there. Jennifer and my father had been desecrating my parents' home and exploiting my mother's cognitive decline to facilitate their sexual relationship. My father admitted that he had been encouraging my mother to rest more frequently for longer periods so that he could spend time alone with Jennifer without my mother's presence interfering with their affair. Only when she seemed tired, my father said when I confronted him about his role in the deception. Jennifer and I needed privacy, and it seemed like a natural way to create opportunities for us to be together. My father had been manipulating my mother's dementia symptoms and her need for rest to create opportunities for his affair with my wife. The most disgusting revelation was that Jennifer and my father had been using my mother's confusion and memory problems to hide evidence of their relationship and prevent her from understanding what was happening in her own home. Your mother sometimes seemed suspicious or confused about why Jennifer and I were spending so much time alone together, my father admitted. But her memory problems meant she couldn't piece together what was really happening. Jennifer and my father had been exploiting my mother's dementia to cover up their affair, knowing that her cognitive decline would prevent her from understanding or remembering their inappropriate behavior. Jennifer also revealed that she had been deliberately isolating my mother during her visits by encouraging her to engage in activities that would keep her away from Jennifer and my father while they had sex. I would suggest that your mother call her friends, work on puzzles in her bedroom, or take baths during times when your father and I wanted privacy, Jennifer said. I knew how to keep her occupied and distracted. Jennifer had been manipulating my vulnerable mother to facilitate her affair with my father, using her professional knowledge of elderly care to exploit my mother's needs and limitations. The investigation into Jennifer and my father's affair also revealed that they had been planning to continue their relationship permanently and had been discussing how to handle my mother's care needs and my reaction if their affair was discovered. What were you planning for the future? I asked Jennifer when I pressed her for details about their long-term intentions. Your father and I talked about being together after your mother's condition worsens, Jennifer admitted. We knew that her dementia was progressing, and we thought that eventually we could be together more openly. Jennifer and my father had been planning to continue their affair until my mother's dementia became severe enough that she wouldn't understand or remember their relationship. My father also admitted that they had discussed how to handle the situation if I discovered their affair, and they had been hoping that I would eventually accept their relationship as a natural development given the caregiving circumstances. We thought that maybe you would understand that Jennifer and I developed genuine feelings for each other, my father said, and that you might be willing to accept our relationship since Jennifer was providing such valuable care for your mother. Jennifer and my father had been planning to present their affair as a natural outcome of the caregiving situation rather than acknowledging it as a fundamental betrayal of family relationships and marriage vows when I demanded to know how my father could betray his marriage to my mother and his relationship with me for his own selfish desires. He initially tried to claim that his affair with Jennifer had developed from loneliness and the stress of caring for my mother. Your mother's dementia has been very difficult for me, my father said. She's not the same person she used to be. And Jennifer provided companionship and understanding that I wasn't getting from my marriage anymore. But my father's explanation ignored the fact that his affair with Jennifer had made my mother's care situation more dangerous and had violated every principle of family loyalty and marriage commitment. Dad, I said, you took advantage of Jennifer's access to our family to have an affair with my wife. You exploited Mom's dementia to hide your sexual relationship. You violated your marriage vows and your responsibilities as my father for your own gratification. My father's affair with Jennifer hadn't been about loneliness or caregiving stress. It had been about selfishness and the willingness to destroy family relationships for immediate physical pleasure. I told both Jennifer and my father that I never wanted to see either of them again and that I was ending all relationships with both of them immediately. Jennifer initially tried to convince me that we could work through her affair with counseling and that she was willing to end her relationship with my father to save our marriage. I made a terrible mistake, Jennifer said. I love you and I want to fix our marriage. What happened with your father was wrong and I regret it completely. But Jennifer's affair with my father wasn't a mistake. It had been an 8-month relationship that had involved systematic exploitation of my parents' vulnerability and my trust. Jennifer, I said, you had sex with my father for 8 months while using my mother's dementia to hide your affair. You exploited my family's trust and my mother's illness to conduct a relationship that violated every boundary of decency and family respect. That's not something that can be fixed with counseling. I filed for divorce immediately and reported Jennifer to her professional licensing board for exploiting vulnerable elderly clients, since her affair with my father had violated professional ethics regarding relationships with clients' family members. I also had to make the heartbreaking decision to find alternative care arrangements for my parents, since Jennifer could no longer be trusted around my family and my father's judgment had been so compromised by their affair. The most difficult aspect of the entire situation was explaining to my mother, in ways that her dementia-affected mind could understand, why Jennifer would no longer be helping with her care and why I was limiting my father's access to decisions about her medical and personal needs. Where is Jennifer? My mother would ask when her new caregiver arrived. I like Jennifer. She's very kind to me. I had to find ways to explain Jennifer's absence without traumatizing my mother with the details of the affair or creating additional confusion about family relationships. I also had to confront the reality that my father's judgment and moral character had been so compromised by his affair that he could no longer longer be trusted to make decisions in my mother's best interest. My father's affair with Jennifer had created a situation where my mother was no longer safe in her own home with her husband, requiring me to explore alternative living arrangements that would protect her from further exploitation or neglect. 6 weeks later, I've had to rebuild my entire understanding of family relationships and marriage while also managing the complex care needs of my mother, whose dementia continues to progress. The divorce from Jennifer was finalized quickly due to the clear evidence of her adultery and professional misconduct, and she lost her physical therapy license due to her exploitation of vulnerable clients. My relationship with my father is permanently destroyed, and I've had to limit his access to my mother's care while working with social services and elder care professionals to ensure her safety and well-being. My mother now lives in a specialized memory care facility where she receives professional treatment for her dementia in an environment where she's protected from exploitation and abuse. The experience has taught me painful lessons about the vulnerability of elderly family members and the importance of maintaining professional boundaries and providing care for aging relatives. Jennifer's affair with my father taught me that some people are capable of exploiting the most sacred relationships, marriage, family, and caregiving, for their own selfish purposes. I now understand that trust must be carefully monitored and verified when it comes to the care of vulnerable family members, and that even people who seem caring and professional can be capable of profound betrayal. Sometimes people ask me if I blame myself for not recognizing signs of Jennifer and my father's affair earlier, or if I should have been more suspicious of their close relationship during caregiving activities. While I could have been more aware of certain warning signs, Jennifer and my father are ultimately responsible for choosing to betray my trust, exploit my mother's vulnerability, and destroy our family relationships. Jennifer made the choice to use her caregiving role to seduce my father and conduct an affair that endangered my mother's well-being and safety. My father made the choice to violate his marriage vows, exploit my mother's dementia, and betray his responsibilities as both a husband and a father for his own selfish gratification. Both of them are adults who understood that their actions would cause tremendous damage to multiple family relationships and would put a vulnerable elderly woman at risk. I trusted Jennifer to provide professional care for my parents because that's what marriage and family relationships require. Faith that the people closest to you will protect rather than exploit people you love most. I trusted my father to honor his marriage vows and his role as my mother's protector because that's what family relationships are supposed to mean. The fact that both of them were willing to violate that trust for their own immediate pleasure says everything about their character and nothing about my judgment or oversight. I'm grateful that I discovered their affair before my mother suffered additional harm and before I wasted more time in relationships with people who were fundamentally selfish and dishonest. The betrayal was devastating, but it also protected my mother from further exploitation and freed me from relationships that were built on deception and moral corruption. My mother and I are building a new life based on authentic care and protection, and she's receiving professional treatment that prioritizes her safety and dignity rather than serving as a cover for other people's selfish desires. The experience taught me that true love and family loyalty require protecting vulnerable members from exploitation rather than using their needs as opportunities for personal gratification. I now understand the difference between people who genuinely care about family well-being and people who exploit family relationships for their own benefit while causing tremendous harm to the people they claim to love.